Hey there, fellow soil whisperers. Welcome back to Soil Sage Chronicles. I've got to share something that's been absolutely blowing my mind lately. While we're all chasing the latest fertilizers, fancy irrigation systems, and high-tech growing gadgets, some of the most effective gardening techniques were perfected thousands of years ago. I'm talking about methods so brilliant that our ancestors would probably chuckle at how we've overcomplicated things. Today, I want to take you on a journey through time to rediscover these ancient gardening secrets that are not only still relevant, but often outperform our modern approaches. Trust me, by the end of this article, you'll be looking at your garden, and maybe your wallet, in a whole new way. Let me start with something that completely changed how I think about companion planting. The indigenous peoples of North America perfected what they called the Three Sisters method over 1,000 years ago, and honestly, it's more sophisticated than most modern polyculture systems I've encountered. Here's how it works. You plant corn, beans, and squash together in the same space. The corn provides a natural trellis for the beans to climb, the beans fix nitrogen in the soil to feed their hungry companions, and the squash spreads out below, acting as a living mulch that suppresses weeds and retains moisture. It's like having three plants work as one super efficient team. I tried this in my own garden last season and the results were phenomenal. Not only did I get higher yields than planting each crop separately, but I also used 60% less water and virtually eliminated my weeding time in that section. The corn stalks were stronger, the beans produced longer, and the squash had the most robust vines I'd ever grown. The secret lies in understanding that these plants evolved together in the wild and naturally complement each other's needs. Modern monoculture farming has made us forget this fundamental principle of nature's interconnectedness. Now let me tell you about something that makes our expensive soil amendments look like child's play. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, archaeologists discovered patches of incredibly fertile black soil called terra preta, or Amazonian dark earth. These soils were created by indigenous peoples between 500 and 9,000 years ago, and they're still some of the most fertile soils on Earth. The secret ingredient? Biochar. These ancient gardeners created a form of charcoal by burning organic matter in low oxygen conditions, then mixing it into their soil along with food scraps, human waste, and fish bones. The result is soil that can hold nutrients and water like nothing I've ever seen. I started making my own biochar 2 years ago using a simple burn barrel method, and the transformation in my garden beds has been remarkable. Plants in biochar-amended soil show dramatically improved drought resistance, stronger root systems, and increased nutrient uptake. The best part? Biochar lasts for centuries in the soil, making it a one-time investment that keeps paying dividends. You can create biochar at home by burning wood scraps, pruned branches, or even paper in a controlled, low-oxygen environment. Mix it with compost and work it into your beds and you'll have created your own version of terra preta. Here's an ancient technique from Eastern Europe that sounds almost too simple to work, but I promise you it's gardening gold. Hugelkultur, which literally means hill culture, involves burying logs and branches in your garden beds to create self-watering, self-fertilizing growing mounds. The process is straightforward. Dig a trench about 2 feet deep, fill it with logs and branches of various sizes, then cover with smaller twigs, leaves, and finally soil. As the buried wood slowly decomposes over the years, it acts like a giant sponge, storing water during wet periods and releasing it during dry spells. Meanwhile, the decomposition process feeds your plants with a steady stream of nutrients. I built my first Hugelkultur bed 3 years ago using fallen branches from a storm cleanup, and it's become the most productive area of my garden. Even during our worst drought last summer, plants in that bed never showed signs of water stress, while everything else was wilting. The soil structure has improved dramatically too. It's loose, airy, and teeming with beneficial microorganisms. The beauty of this method is that you're essentially creating a permaculture system that improves with age. Year after year, as the buried wood breaks down, your soil becomes richer and more water retentive. Our ancestors understood something about seeds that we've largely forgotten in our rush toward hybrid varieties and genetic modification: the power of locally adapted genetics. For thousands of years, gardeners saved seeds from their best-performing plants, gradually creating varieties perfectly suited to their specific climate and soil conditions. This practice of selecting and saving seeds from plants that thrive despite challenges like drought, pests or poor soil, created incredibly resilient varieties. These heirloom seeds often outperform modern hybrids in terms of flavor, nutrition, and adaptability to local growing conditions. I started saving seeds 5 years ago, beginning with simple crops like beans, tomatoes, and lettuce. Each season, I select seeds only from the plants that performed best under stress. The tomatoes that kept producing during heat waves, the lettuce that didn't bolt early, the beans that resisted pest damage. Over time, I've developed varieties that are perfectly adapted to my garden's microclimate. The results have been incredible. My saved tomato seeds now produce plants that consistently outperform store-bought seedlings in both yield and disease resistance. My lettuce varieties handle summer heat far better than any commercial variety I've tried. Before chemical pesticides, gardeners developed sophisticated integrated pest management systems using plants, beneficial insects, and natural deterrents. These methods often work better than modern chemicals because they create sustainable, balanced ecosystems rather than killing everything indiscriminately. One of my favorite ancient techniques is trap cropping, where you plant specific crops to attract pests away from your main vegetables. For example, nasturtiums planted around tomatoes will attract aphids and cucumber beetles, keeping them off your precious crops. Radishes planted with cucumbers draw cucumber beetles away from the main plants. Another powerful method is creating habitat for beneficial insects. Ancient gardeners knew that a diverse garden with flowering plants, small shrubs, and undisturbed areas would naturally control pest populations. I've designated about 10% of my garden space to native wildflowers and beneficial insect habitat, and the natural pest control has been remarkable. The key is understanding that healthy soil creates healthy plants, and healthy plants are naturally more resistant to pests and diseases. Ancient gardeners focused on feeding the soil rather than fighting the symptoms, and this holistic approach consistently produces better long-term results than chemical interventions. Perhaps nowhere is ancient wisdom more relevant than in water management. Techniques developed in arid regions thousands of years ago are proving invaluable as water becomes increasingly precious in our changing climate. The ancient technique of Ola irrigation, developed in China and perfected by indigenous peoples of the Americas, involves burying unglazed clay pots in garden beds and filling them with water. The porous clay slowly releases moisture directly to plant roots, using up to 70% less water than surface irrigation while maintaining optimal soil moisture levels. I installed Olas in my raised beds last spring, and the water savings have been dramatic. Even more impressive is how much healthier my plants look. The consistent, gentle moisture delivery has eliminated the stress of wet-dry cycles that comes with traditional watering methods. Another ancient water-saving technique is creating microclimates through strategic use of thermal mass and shade. Ancient gardeners in desert regions positioned large stones to store heat and moderate temperature swings, while using taller plants to create cooling shade for sensitive crops below. The more I experiment with these ancient techniques, the more convinced I become that our ancestors had figured out sustainable agriculture in ways we're still trying to rediscover. These methods work with natural systems rather than against them, creating gardens that become more productive and resilient over time. The beauty of these ancient secrets is their simplicity and accessibility. You don't need expensive equipment or specialized knowledge, just a willingness to observe, experiment, and learn from thousands of years of accumulated wisdom. Start small with 1 or 2 techniques that resonate with you. Maybe try companion planting with the Three Sisters method, or begin saving seeds from your best-performing plants. Each small step toward these time-tested practices will make your garden more productive, sustainable, and enjoyable. What ancient gardening technique are you most excited to try? I'd love to hear about your experiments and results in the comments below. And if this article opened your eyes to the wisdom of our gardening ancestors like it did for me, please subscribe to Soil Sage Chronicles and share this with fellow gardeners who might benefit from these timeless secrets. Together, we can rediscover the art of working with nature rather than against it. Happy gardening, everyone!